a time when I was sitting around a large banquet table up at our former UUA headquarters, maybe 10 years ago, in Elliott and Pickett, our denomination's former bed and breakfast, a group before they moved downtown Boston. A group of 11 of us were meeting together for a few days on a council that deals with staffing and finances. Think health insurance, retirement, and hiring practices for UU congregations. I was representing either our educators group or our ministers group. I don't remember at this point. We're going around the table, introducing ourselves in the most boring way possible. Name, what group we represent, where we serve. After a few descriptions in, one member of the council jumps in and asks, "What's your favorite movie?" A blank look creeps on the person's face as they are immediately thrown out of our dry rope, and it shifts into the warmth of the person inside. We're out of our head and reliving a moment of joy or depth or humor. Various answers: Lincoln, Chinatown, arsenic and old lace. I finally went with The Empire Strikes Back. There were a few more odd looks around the table as everyone's faces went back to their memories of that movie. The cartoon thought bubbles popped over their heads. Well, that's sci-fi. It's not great theater. Well, not in the classic sense. One of the lead roles is a Muppet. And then faces start to slowly nod. The movie does stand the test of time. It does. It does define a generation with its scope and wonder. Deep down, we all want the Force to be with us. So something you should know about me right now, if this has not come up yet, I'm a big sci-fi fantasy geek. Our lives are so serious. There are so many challenges and struggles in the world, and I take it all to heart like many of you do, and sometimes get very immersed with my work, with ministry. Give me a Muppet with a lightsaber any day to balance that out. Apparently, I'm not alone in the preference. The late, great Roger Ebert, movie critic, for folks who are not familiar with him, who also died about 10 years ago now, I think. He wrote, and I'll quote, "The Empire Strikes Back is the best of the Star Wars films and the most thought-provoking. After the space opera cheerfulness of the original film, this one plunges into darkness and even despair, and surrenders more completely to the underlying mystery of the story. It's because of the emotions stirred in Empire that the entire series takes on a mythic quality that resonates back to the first and ahead to the third. This is the heart." Listen to Ebert. We can encounter the range of human emotions from cheerfulness and joy to darkness and despair until we eventually surrender to the mystery of the story, our lives. I have to wonder if he was just trying to write a critique of the film, or he was secretly throwing in a working definition of the role of religion in our lives. As Unitarian Universalists, we're never going to agree on all things theological. Can we agree on that? Yes? Okay, I got some head nodding. That's a UU miracle right there. Especially if you try to think of theology in terms of beliefs to follow. That's not going to work for us easily or well. Our faith is more focused on our shared commitments and convictions. At its best, at our best, religion helps us to appreciate the times of joy when they come, make sense of the despair that will find its way into our lives from time to time, while knowing we're never truly left alone to deal with it. And the beauty of our tradition, throughout all our intellectualism, all our critique, all our challenge, part of it recognizes that there's no one way to understand the world that's absolutely correct. Our neat rows on Sunday morning are filled with folks who each hold a different view from the next. We seek to reflect the breadth of human experience without placing it in a box, cataloged and pinned. Follow Unitarian Universalism far enough down the road, and eventually it asks us, as Ebert described, to surrender more completely to the underlying mystery of the story, of our story. We point to a central awe at the heart of our lives, and we struggle to name it as best and sometimes as worst as we can. Meditation or mindfulness can bring us there. A dedication to God can bring us there. Compassion for the simple sake of compassion can bring us there. What we call it or what discipline we use matters much less than the openness to a sense of wonder in our lives. We're allowed to have a sense of wonder even in these times of difficulty and strife in the world. Ebert's review went on to say, I'll quote, "In the glory days of science fiction, critics wrote about the sense of wonder. That's what The Empire Strikes Back creates in us. Like a lot of traditional science fiction, it isn't psychologically complex. That's because the characters are not themselves, they're us. We're looking out through their eyes instead of into them, as we would in a more serious drama. We are on a quest, on a journey, on a mythological expedition. We're in a receptive state like that of a child. Our eyes and ears are open. We're paying attention and we're amazed." It's this sense that I try to keep in mind when we talk about some of our principles. Take the fourth, for example, where we covenant to affirm and promote the responsible search for truth and meaning. What does a responsible search even mean? Intellectually honest? Kindness in our speech, especially when we disagree? It also means we're open-minded, we're paying attention, that we allow ourselves to be amazed by life, a life that we did nothing of our own to be born into. When we move the center of our search, of our quest, back to a place of wonder and respect, it can feel a little humbling, right? I really have to marvel at how all of this came out of a committee meeting roundtable introduction. It's funny how the little insertion of humanity can turn the droll into something engaging. The questions of who, what, where gave us all the facts and details we needed for basic intros, but left us dry, bringing us instead to questions of passion or preference, of joy, changed the nature of our meeting, and it changed the quality of our interactions. People I've worked with time and time again, people who I thought were otherwise nice, but I never really made a real connection with them, finally clicked. By the end of the few days, we started sharing more and more of our lives together. After the work hours were done, some of them are still friends now. It's in the sense that I hope we can root our shared ministry together in the years to come. A wise teacher once told me that it's best to start as you mean to continue. That practice has saved me heartache time and time again in the work world and also in my personal life. Whatever negative practices we begin now will stay with us for the long haul, and we are in a big time of transition. I like to flip that though. Now that I've finished my first here with y'all at Community, let's think about starting a good habit together in the new year. Let us be open to a sense of curiosity for our differing views. Let us craft spaces for people to feel at home, whether they believe in God or they don't believe in God, or they aren't particularly moved one way or the other. Despite all our knowledge, mystery is the very core of life. We don't really know. But the journey and how we handle ourselves on the road matters very deeply. Silencing one perspective is just as bad as silencing the other. We are stronger together for our diversity. There's a powerful quote from UU folk singer Pete Seeger. There's a river of my people and its flow is swift and strong. There's a river of my people and its flow is swift and strong. He's an American icon, American tradition all on his own, and his music is so often about building a world of justice and equity. It matches well our own philanthropic commitments to peace, liberty, and justice here at Community Church. Our strength as a people rests in the onward movement of our work together. That river is leading us to a world where the beloved community, so often spoke of by prophets, like Martin Luther King Jr. we spoke about last week, is a reality even if we never see it in our lifetime. Even so, it matters that we keep moving toward it, however slowly we are in that traffic jam, block by block. The strength of the river doesn't rely on where the individual rivulets break away. The strength of the river relies on where all those rivulets come together. Building a world founded in compassion requires all of us working together with a shared purpose, centered in love and respect. That very practice is a spiritual discipline. It's a discipline, one that is much easier to say than to do. If you've ever been stuck on a line in a Walgreens or wherever, and you've lost your patience over the stupidest thing, you know what I mean, how difficult that is to do in all ways and all times. I'd like to take a lesson here from our religious education classes, their children and youth. Most of them have a practice that's incredibly helpful, that our adults could benefit from following. This is pretty universal in our RE programs. They begin every year by building a covenant together. They come up with promises they make to one another, not rules to follow, but practices to honor. They figure out as a group how to start in a way that they mean to continue. When one of us falls back out of covenant, the class, the community, can kindly bring them back into right relationship. It's something that's a lot easier to do when the promises are hanging from the wall with a magic marker. Everyone knows what's expected. People are surprised by cultural secrets or in-house cliques. It can seem like a small thing, but it's probably one of our most universal spiritual practice, something that our children and youth tend to excel at better than the rest of us. And it's something we can learn from. This practice is at our heart. It's our core of our faith, our promises to one another. We're not a creedal faith. There's no litmus test to define the right responses for factual questions of belief, rote or otherwise. In this religious home, there's room for searching. Rather, we're a covenantal faith. We are defined by our relationships, by our commitments, by the promises we make with one another. Our principles themselves are all written as relational. We often shrink them down, but they're written as promises. Here's an example. Our third principle calls us to affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. Now, I can't think of a more dangerous principle to have, to live by. If I tried to apply this back home with my parents, forget it. Encouragement to spiritual growth. I love my Sicilian Catholic mom, but if she tried to encourage me in her way, we might not be talking for another month. But that's the very discipline our religion tries to nurture and develop. We just need to center the practice in ground rules, so to speak, in promises kept, in covenant, so that when we go too far or we stall on the road, we have each other to hold us back or lift us up. And we're not surprised by the outreach. We've agreed that this is how we will call each other back in. Our shared ministry together, both in leadership of our laity and the rich collaboration of our whole staff team, is a strength we have. Collaboration is a strength. It also means this practice of covenant. We have it even within ourselves. We have a covenant within the staff team of how we will communicate and be responsible to each other. The ways in which we care and work together as a community is how we best share our ministry with one another. I know Reverend Peggy, our senior minister, is leading us in a multiple-year reflection on the meaning of covenant now. I imagine we'll continue to have opportunities in the months ahead to reflect on this as we slowly develop one for the whole congregational body. We can hold our meetings and do our work focusing just on the what and the where, something so common when we are busy studying for school or immersed in our careers or raising our kids alone. Or we can leave room to learn what our favorite movies are. We can craft space for our humanity to shine in between our tasks and projects. The work we do here is always secondary to the people we are building deeper connections with. All the details will pass. All the facts will someday be forgotten. It will be the laughs and the tears that linger in our hearts. Always make room for them. Always make room for them. Our religion is about the laughter and the tears. It's about the heart at our center. It's about how we are in the world and how we strive to be. It seeks to ground us in the mystery that is our life. It teaches us that there is a path worth living and moving along. There's ever a potential for hope and the unfolding of the human spirit. We are loved and maintain the possibility to love. Perfections and products are pale compensations for the forgetting of our connectedness in this awe-inspiring living world. I look forward to continuing to get to know you all in the weeks and hopefully years ahead. There is a river of my people, and its flow is swift and strong. Amen, and blessed be.